Learn from the Exponential Innovators. In this lesson, we'll look at how big companies use prototyping in the innovation process, why competent execution of an idea is not as important as you might think, and why you need to stop building things. Well-funded companies like the FAANG crowd, which is Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, really understand failure. They understand that in order to innovate, you have to iterate. And iteration means experimenting, failing, and learning. Your organization isn't likely to have the same level of resources or complexity as these innovators, but you're using the same principles. No matter how complex or well-resourced a company, the principles remain the same. So let's look at the products of some real companies. In this case, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Google, and Amazon. If you look on the left-hand side, you'll see all of these successful multi-billion-dollar products in the market. They've all done really, really well. Now, how does the same company with the same resources and the same capability, who built the winning ideas on the left-hand side of the screen, build the unsuccessful rubbish on the right-hand side? I know that's a strong word, but all of these are multi-billion-dollar failures. They used exactly the same process, but they failed. Why? Because it doesn't matter what you make if the market simply doesn't care. I want you to think about failure in your organization. What happens when a product or service fails? Generally, we try and optimize the process, we tweak project management, we hire someone, we fire someone, we create more marketing, we try and train the customer, which is the worst thing ever. But often, simply, the customer didn't care about your service or product. So the market doesn't care that you're going to fail. According to AstroTeller, 99% of all new products fail. So instead of spending $1 billion building something we only guess the market will want, maybe there's another way to do this. And this is where we turn back to prototyping. Prototyping is about not building things. Why? Because we save $1 million each time we don't build something. Now I know that sounds like a completely made up figure, and it is, but here's where it comes from. In one of my roles running an innovation team, I was asked, what is our return on innovation investment going to be? And the answer is somewhere between $1 and $1 trillion. I don't know. I've just said 99% of the things we're going to do is going to fail, so I can't answer the question. The way I answered the question was by looking at what the cost was to get a product into the market, with all the service and internal costs and everything. For this organization, it was just over $1 million to get these products and features and services out to the market. With prototyping, what we saw happening was that we were running prototypes, essentially testing and trying to validate $1 million idea, and every time something failed, we banked it. We logged it saying, well, we saved 2 sprints of time here, and this many hundreds of thousands of dollars here, etc., but not building things. Then at the next reporting cycle, we went back and reported on all the things that we didn't build and the money we saved, and the resources that were freed up by not building things based on guessing. And this is a really powerful way to think about prototyping. And your leaders will love this, because we save time and money by not building things. Instead, we want to innovate in a way that gives us data, because remember, data beats opinions. So what do we do about this? Well, firstly, we don't innovate like a startup. Even if you're a startup, the answer isn't hire a startup person and move to a co-working space and get a beanbag and scooters and noodles and headsets and all that jazz. That's fine and really good for culture, and there's a place for that in your organization. But it's not how you figure out if an idea is good or bad. What you do, and what these exponential innovators do, is apply rigor to experimentation, which is effectively what prototyping does. And we distill this down to 2 methods: the lean canvas by Ash Maurya and prototyping. These 2 simple things will help you to get 2 lenses on our customers, where the lean canvas helps you focus very much on what the customer's problem is from their perspective, and prototyping helps you figure out what customers do versus what they say. Now we'll cover the lean canvas in detail later in this course when we get to the exercises around doing your own prototypes, so don't worry about that for now. For now, we'll focus on prototyping. Given that 99% of ideas are going to fail, prototyping is what we use to find the 1% of good ideas that are going to work. Most companies I'm working with are currently testing between 4 and 8 ideas per year on actual customers, and I refer to this as experiment velocity. Now that means that given 99% of ideas are going to fail, there's a close to 0 chance that the few ideas they've chosen to test are actually going to work. 1% of 4 or 8 is not very much. So instead, we turn to prototyping, which is very simple. It's essentially taking that testing process and using it on 10 times the amount of ideas. So 10xing the number of ideas that you'd usually test in your old innovation process. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Is it easy? No. Think about what change is going to have to happen in your organization in order to collaborate differently, fund differently, work across various teams, find space on a roadmap. Everything changes. But you really have to think about the positive impact that driving experimentation has on your organization and looking at creating the new structures, processes, and developing people and resources in order to support this. That's what Exponential Innovators and the FAANG crowd have learned. That if you adopt prototyping and embrace and tame failure, you can actually innovate, because you finally have a method that lets you discover the ideas that actually work. In this lesson, we've learned competent execution means nothing if the market doesn't care. You need to test many more ideas than you're currently testing in order to work through the 99% of ideas that fail and find the 1% of ideas that actually work. In the next lesson, we're going to journey to a magical but dangerous place called Thoughtland in order to learn how prototyping can get you out of it.